Greetings from Kenwell. Today is Sunday, September 28th. Here's one last story about our trip to Newfoundland. When we were away, we had to get someone to look after our golden retriever, Fergus. The people looking after him showed him lots of love, and their kids absolutely loved Fergus. But as soon as Fergus got home, he started throwing up. This continued over a few days, so we took him to the vet. The vet gave him an x-ray, and it turned out that he had swallowed 2 corn cobs. Don't you find it amazing that he could actually do that? Well, the next day he got operated on. Everything was successful, but Fergus had to wear a comb for the next 2 weeks. Just over a week ago, we took Fergus back to the vet, and he got all his stitches taken up. The operation cost us slightly under $3,000. Oh, I have to tell you, that sure did hurt. We love you, Fergus, but please don't be stupid enough to do this again. Last week, I looked at 1 Peter 1 verse 4, which tells us that Jesus has given every Christian an inheritance, which is a perfect body that will live forever in heaven. Today I want to continue by looking at 1 Peter 1, 6-7. In this you rejoice, though now for a little while you may have to suffer various trials, so that the genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold, which though perishable is tested by fire, may redound to praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. The Apostle Peter has just told us in verse 4 about our inheritance. And now the Apostle Peter is telling us that we are to rejoice in the fact, as Peter says, some may have to suffer various trials. We see these trials all around us. They include things like when a person gets a diagnosis of stage 4 cancer, with the outcome being certain death. It can include things like losing our job, getting divorced, the sudden loss of a child, or a debilitating accident. Peter is telling us that we can rejoice through any type of trial like this. Truthfully, how can anyone in their right mind rejoice when these type of trials come into our lives? Well, there is indeed an answer. Let me give you an example of Joni Eareckson. In 1967, when Joni was 17 years old, she had a diving accident. She dove into the Chesapeake Bay after misjudging the shallowness of the water. She had a fracture between the 4th and 5th cervical vertebrae and became a quadriplegic and was paralyzed from the shoulders down. During her 2 years of rehabilitation, according to her autobiography, Joni experienced anger, depression, and suicidal thoughts. What led her out of this were some Christian friends who prayed for her and shared their Bible with her. As the years went by, her depression began to lift as Christian friends surrounded her, praying for her and sharing the Bible with her. Joni said, "There is no inherent goodness in disability, disease, or deformity, but we are promised in the book of Romans in 8:28 that all things can fit together into a pattern, a plan for good, our good, and His glory." It is from reading the Bible that helped Joni to see that her injury was not a punishment, but as a path God allowed to bring a greater good, which led her to believe that Jesus is God. And Joni asked Jesus to forgive her sins, and she became a Christian. The Holy Spirit slowly but surely worked on Joni, and the Holy Spirit created a desire in her to help others with disability, to find hope in Jesus. This ministry became known as Joni, Johnny, and Friends. Joni said, "Don't let anyone tell you that contentment is easy. Contentment, real satisfaction with God's promises and plans, come through making tough choices, leaning hard into Jesus and not away from Him, believing God and not your own feelings. All this doesn't come naturally." She says, even the Apostle Paul says he learned the secret of being content. He said, "For I have learned In whatever situation, I am to be content. Earlier on, in Philippians 4:4, the Apostle Paul says, rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. When you become a Christian, Jesus gives you his Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and you can have inexplicable joy in even the worst trials that come your way. God also says this in the Old Testament in Habakkuk 3 verse 18. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. As I like to say, may the good Lord be with you until we meet again next week.